you see the big lights that get brought on after games, etc. Which cost an utter fortune, but to run and to buy for that matter. However, probably out of anything, those lights that you do see are probably the one reason that pitches in the Premier League and in Europe now as well are seen amongst the best in the world.
So on a weekend when there's no Premier League football and no Manchester City to watch, I thought I'd do something slightly different, which is give you a video extract of the audio podcast that I regularly do with a variety of guests. So if you follow me on X or what used to be Twitter or Facebook or whatever, you'll see me post the links to the audio podcast, which is hosted on SoundCloud, but also available on iTunes, Spotify, and on other places you can get it. So this is a video version or part of one of those podcasts that we did last week when Lee Jackson, the former head groundsman of City, was our special guest. 33 years in the job, a diehard Blue. And so the conversation, part of it anyway, was about his memories of doing that job and what it's like, and some stories from being the head groundsman, of course. So hope you enjoy this. Give it a like, a thumbs up, subscribe, it's free. And thanks very much for your support, because as you know, it's great to be a Blue. Here's Lee. So let's come back to you, Lee. 33 years at Manchester City, head groundsman. Wow, what a job. How has that, first of all, that job changed? And what is there a typical day doing what you do?
Well, yeah, as it's changed beyond all recognition, to be honest. Just to sort of slightly amend what you said about 33 years head groundsman, etc. But only it was 2009 I became head groundsman, but sort of had a management role for a number of years before that, albeit not in that title. So when I first started in 1991, it was, as a YTS person, it was very different. You'd probably spend 1, maybe 2 days a week on the pitch the rest of the time, because it was such a small staff at the club. You'd be going around emptying bins, you'd be putting toilet holes in toilets. It was a very, very different landscape to what we do now. And people always used to say, "Oh, Man City's pitch, in the 60s and 70s, it was fantastic." And me personally, I always see these highlights, and all I see is a mud bath. So it must have just been better mud than anybody else's at the time. And that's not to be critical of anything that went on then, because that carried on right throughout my time in the 90s at City. It really wasn't very good. You could tip an egg cup full of water onto the pitch and there'd be a pitch inspection straight away, and it really wasn't great. So, and that's how the club has come on, to be honest. Probably starting really with David Bernstein, along with Chris Bird, Alistair McIntosh, Dennis Stewart, sort of late 90s, and John Wardle and David Makin, obviously. Shouldn't forget them, that they recognised that the club should become more professional. Things started to move sort of around about 2001, I think it would have been. And the investment that the club made, because they were moving to Carrington at the time, they invested, I remember at the time, just out of nowhere, and it was the year we went down in 2001, £500,000 just like that into pitches, and upgraded the Main Road as it was. It was unheard of, certainly in my 10 years at the club at the time. So, but it was that level of professionalism which was going right across the club, and obviously that has grown to this day. Our time was obviously better spent on pitches then, obviously, which it was, because the club was growing and growing. So, but you go through from then, it was still basic to a degree to what we see now in terms of machinery. You see the big lights that get brought on after games, etc. Which cost an utter fortune, but to run and to buy for that matter. However, probably out of anything, those lights that you do see are probably the one reason that pitches in the Premier League and in Europe now as well are seen amongst the best in the world, because the investment's been made, the technological advancements have been made, and clubs see it as a much more important part of the sort of landscape, if you like. I mean, again, if you see, it's not just the football you see. I mean, obviously, I've seen a lot of concerts at both Main Road and the Etihad, and certainly my first week, I'll never forget. Started on the 5th of August 1991. And on the 10th of August, which was the following Saturday, as I recall, we had Simple Minds in concert. I think the first team were away to Coventry that day, and we were at home the following week. Again, the pitch wasn't very good for the first game. So, a lot more thoughts gone into now when we have had concerts over the last 10, 15 years. There's a cut-off date, sort of middle of June, and there'll be 7, 8 weeks, depending on when your first game was, home or away, to get the pitch ready. So again, there's a lot more consideration, but that goes right across the club as well, not just with the ground staff department, but yeah, it's, and it goes back to what I said earlier. The level of expectancy these days is that it's got to be the best it can be. It's got to be the best there is. World leading facilities is something we always talked about at the club. So and to be given the tools to do that obviously makes it that bit more easier, for want of a better phrase, though it isn't easy, obviously. But it just gives you that ability to be able to do that. So yeah, it's extremely different, and it's one of those. It's great having the sort of the equipment and the facilities that we have, but it honestly it's a lot harder work with that sort of thing than it is prior to that, because there was no expectancy, in the 90s, in the 80s, etc. Whereas now there is. So I always say, there's never excuses. There's only reasons, and that is the reason things have moved on, because of the technology. It's never an excuse because that technology wasn't available then. But that you're getting a more sustainable sort of world now as well, in terms of there's a water recycling system underneath the pitch, which was put in 2021, which on a match day can account for almost 100% of the actual water that's used on the pitch. So again, doing that, electric mowers, which were brought in last year, not new technology, but fairly new technology. So there's always innovations out there that are bringing what grounds teams do, to a more sustainable and better level.
In that job, then, I suppose that these days you would very rarely have any sleepless nights over preparing a pitch, because there's very little can really go wrong, is there?
Well, there's always something can go wrong. And generally, it always has done at one point or another. It's you always do worry, because as a groundsman, everything to a degree can be seen as out of your control, particularly with the weather. Fixtures. Are you going to be home or away in the FA Cup draw? I must admit that first time in 33 years, a month or so ago, I wasn't bothered whether City were at home or not in the Carabao Cup, because I wasn't having to worry about working till midnight that night. So it really didn't bother me. It was a relief almost. So yeah, I mean, it's like any aspect of football. You see it with the team, with the manager, etc. Everyone's got an opinion, and that was no different with our job. We've had incidents where there's been snow on the pitch, and people say, "Oh, well, why isn't it under sort of heating, melted it, etc." What people don't get, and again, it's not being critical of them, they wouldn't understand unless they knew what we knew, is that things like the undersoil heating, it takes like 2 or 3 days to actually fully kick in, and it will only melt what it comes into contact with. So we'll talk about that. I mean, West Ham, about 3 years ago, I remember Pep at the time said ground staff were his men of the match. We never got a bonus or a bottle of champagne, so hopefully he did mean it. But and people are saying, well, why was there snow on the pitch? Well, the heating wasn't on because there wasn't actually any snow forecast that day. And even if we put it on that day, it would have been irrelevant, but it will only melt what's on the surface, but from the bottom upwards. So compare it to like a game of Tetris, it just lowers slowly and slowly. So, and people said something similar again, I think about 3 years ago now, when we played PSG behind closed doors. We had the most appalling hail storm just before the players warm up, and the pitch was just covered in hailstone, and next thing it's all over the press. So there's snow on the pitch, it's May, it's not melted, why is the undersoil heating on? It was 4 degrees in May. It was ridiculously cold. The heating's never going to be on. Again, it wasn't forecast, and this is the world of, you say about sleepless nights. You just don't know what the weather's going to throw at you. But it's a difficult one. And you go back to the West Ham game that I referred to a minute ago, and it ties in what you're saying about the halftime show for the World Cup. I remember when we did the West Ham game, I had a lot of interaction at the time with Michael Oliver, who was the match referee, and Martin O'Boyle, who was our match delegate. And, he wanted the pitch clearing at half time. We did it, fantastic support from the maintenance staff and the cleaning staff and the stadium management staff, etc. To do that. There's 26 of us on there. But even then, half time is extended, I think it's 22, 23 minutes just to make sure we cleared it. But the players needed a minute or so, just a little bit extra to warm up. And that's what, again, you go back to that halftime show. If you're going to have halftime for half an hour, then you're extending it a little bit more with the players having to do a warm up, etc. And that's the thing that, you know, it's while things are changing, and you know, and there are worries, and you know, the halftime show for me would be a worry in itself. You know, again, because as we've seen yesterday, we've seen in all the games, you know, for however long now, managers want the pitches watered at halftime as well. So again, where does that window appear? So again, you're always having to adapt, and there's everything's a worry. There's always a worry somewhere. If you've nothing to worry about, then I want to know where you work, because I want your job.
Wait, Lee, can I ask you a couple of questions? Yesterday, I was at the game yesterday, and I've never seen this done before. They brought two like yellow lines down at the end of the game. Now, I reckon it was for a robot, right, to cut the grass, or is it literally just to get the line straight?
Just to get the line straight.
Is that all it is?
Yeah. So you know, every cut that's done, whether it's during the week on a match day, etc., the straight lines you get from the mowing pattern, etc., it's just the guide that you'll run. You know, the first mower will run alongside that, and then you just move it along as you go. That's all it is. It's if there was a robot involved, I think there'd be a lot less people. but no, that's all it is. There's nothing particularly. That's not exactly a technological advancement, but it's certainly a very important thing that's done to sort of maintain the sort of standard of pitches these days in presentation.
I did actually film a little robot, by the way, cutting at the CFA one week when I was there for the press conference, and it was actually no, I think it was doing the lines. It was doing the lines.
There's
a place for this sort of thing in this world, but again, I think it's a long way off replacing, you know, the person or the people out there doing the job for certain.
Go on, Paul. What's your other one?
Do you have to have a specific pattern, or do you get to pick it?
You do now, because everything's very regimented. You know, I'll never forget, around about 2006, I think it was. I think we as a team, you know, gained a bit of notoriety on Match of the Day about the patterns we did on the pitch at the time, and I have my own opinion on why the conversation took place. But I remember there was a reserve game on the athletics pitch next door, and Steve Wigley came up to me with Stuart Pearce's assistant. He actually said at the time, he said, "Look, can you just lay off with these patterns and just go back to normal, because people are talking about the patterns more than they're talking about the team." Well, so you know, I couldn't really help that. So you know, I'm sure that was on the football, shall we say? But yeah, so now it's that, and UEFA and FIFA brought this in. You see it in the World Cup. The patterns are very, you know, across and lengthways. They're very, very sort of you know, straight, if you like. And they say it's help with offsides and all that. But you know, I don't think it's just a standard sort of thing. And the Premier League brought that in 4, 5, 6 years ago. Because, and I can understand both sides. It does sort of make it a bit more sort of straight laced, if you like, a bit more regimented, but also takes away some of the sort of uniqueness about it. So so you know, you still see it get done in the lower leagues, and that's great. So but yeah, it's those days are long gone, unfortunately.
Because I do it on my back garden. I often quote you, because I was like, "Oh, Lee would be pleased with this, with my lines in and stuff." Be good.
I, of course, did the job that I did for the BBC as a commentary person for a long, long time. And although my departure wasn't quite, by the sounds of it, as sweet as yours was, I can't deny that I regard that era of my life and career as the best job in the world and the best part of my life. And I still miss it. I still wish I commentated. I still wish I had. I wish I had a connection to the club like you've had. Do you think that you would miss? You think you'll miss it, or will you now be able to just draw a line under it and have a new career?
I think, of course, it's difficult with not being there. But I mean, you know, I've seen things that people never see. Not in a, scandalous way. Just, so fortunate. You get to have you pitched up the trophies, you get to see the games, etc. You're there for them. I seen every game through COVID at home. I was so lucky with that, albeit, we had to act as ball boys, but I made sure I was behind the North Stand goal. So occasionally you'd see me jump up when City score. But as much as that was a privilege to be able to do in terms of still see the games, it's also one of the worst periods ever, because it was mentally, it was quite difficult in terms of it. I compared it with world-class footballers in a Sunday league atmosphere. It was atrocious to watch. It could have been the best game in the world ever, but without a crowd, it's absolute rubbish in terms of an overall spectacle. So it was interesting as well to hear some of the things that certain players were shouting, home and away players, that is, and the way referees sort of deal with things. It was quite insightful. But yeah, I've been incredibly fortunate over 33 years, and the last 5 games now since I left, it's been really good. I sort of compare it, because I go to the games with my son all the time. I compare it almost with going to an away game. I'm up in the stands. I'm not worrying about this, that, or the next. Do I miss it? Absolutely, I miss it, but I don't miss it like I thought I would. But equally, it depends what I'm doing each day. Some days, some weeks, I'm not doing a lot. Some I'm absolutely busy with other things going on. So you can't be somewhere for 33 years and not, say you'll never miss it and not miss it 100%. But it's, there's new challenges out there, and but I wouldn't change a single minute, a single second of anything I did there, because there was some absolutely amazing times. But it's just really great now. But it's great to be a Blue, obviously. Got to throw that one in.
But you're getting a T-shirt now.
Well, if you've still got some here, I'll buy one. It's just great to be able to go as a fan. It's nice, because even now that people recognise you, and I always think that's nice that people recognise the job you've done. But equally, and again, I always think my staff were probably a bit hard done by in terms of staff I had at the stadium, and also the guys who worked at the training ground as well. In that it's the groundsman this and the groundsman that. Well, it's not. It's a team of people. And again, some of the comments I've seen online about people saying, "Oh, it won't be the same." No, it won't. It'll be better. It'll be better every year, because the club are investing all the time. The team is getting better all the time because of development. There was a pitch there long before Lee Jackson. There'll be a pitch there long after Lee Jackson. It's